The Mafia Boss came through Camilla Rossi's clinic door, with blood on his hands, rain on his shoulders, and the kind of silence that made every gun in the room feel louder. He did not ask for help. Men like him rarely asked for anything. They arrived, and the world moved. But Camilla had been awake for 19 hours. Her last good scalpel had vanished from tray 3. The roof above exam room 2 was leaking into a plastic trash can, and a half-dead boy was bleeding across her floor. So when Dante Costa, the most feared man in Chicago, stepped into her clinic like he owned the building, Camilla pointed one bloody glove at him and said, "Move your expensive shadow out of my light." For 1 second, nobody breathed. Not the 2 armed men crowding the hallway, not the nurse frozen beside the medicine cabinet, not the young man on the table whose face had gone gray beneath the buzzing fluorescent lights, not even Dante Costa, who stood there in a black coat worth more than Camilla's rent, staring at her as if she had just slapped him with a wet chart. The storm outside shook the windows. Thunder rolled over the south side like something heavy being dragged across the sky. Behind the clinic, smoke drifted from the alley where Dante's armored car had rammed into Camilla's supply van hard enough to fold the front of it like cheap foil. The van had been old, ugly, and deeply unreliable, but it had belonged to her. More importantly, it had been full of sutures, saline, antibiotics, gauze, and the emergency oxygen tank she had begged a hospital supervisor to sell her after hours for cash. Now half of that was scattered across wet pavement, and the other half was under the front tire of a bulletproof car. Camilla should have locked the door. That would have been the smart thing. That would have been the safe thing. A different doctor might have seen the guns, the blood, the slick black car, the man with cold eyes and a reputation that made cops suddenly remember appointments across town, and decided that death had arrived with better funding than the clinic. A different doctor might have stepped back and said no. Camilla Rossi was not a different doctor. She was a trauma surgeon with aching feet, a temper sharpened by poverty, and an old rule carved somewhere deep in her bones. If someone was dying in front of her, she worked, even if that someone belonged to Dante Costa. Even if Dante Costa himself stood close enough to make the entire clinic feel smaller. "Pressure," she snapped. One of Dante's men looked at her blankly. Camilla turned her head slowly. "Do I need to translate that into rich criminal? Put your hand here and press down before your friend decorates my floor with the rest of his blood." The man looked at Dante first. That annoyed her more than it should have. "He is not the one with the medical license," Camilla said, "unless I missed the part where murder school teaches vascular repair." Dante's gaze moved from her face to the boy on the table. Then he gave one tiny nod. His man lunged forward and pressed both hands over the wound. The boy gasped. "Sorry, kid," Camilla murmured, her voice softer now, because patience got the part of her that was still gentle. I know it hurts. Stay with me. What's your name?" "Nico," he whispered. His voice was thin, too thin. Camilla glanced at his pupils, his skin, the trembling in his mouth. Young, maybe 19, maybe less. Old enough to bleed like a man, young enough to still look surprised by pain. "Hi, Nico. I'm Dr. Rossi. You picked a terrible night for a dramatic entrance." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Then his eyes rolled. "Nope," Camilla tapped his cheek. "None of that. You do not faint in my clinic without permission." The nurse beside her, Maribel, finally found her breath. "BP is dropping." "I can see that." Camilla reached for the trauma tray, then stopped. "Where is the clamp?" Maribel opened the drawer. Empty. Camilla stared at it. The clinic had many enemies: insurance companies, broken pipes, city inspectors who showed up only when she had not slept, patients who paid in crumpled bills and apologies, but nothing betrayed her quite like missing tools. "Of course," she said calmly, too calmly. "Of course my vascular clamp is gone tonight. Why would God waste a storm and a mafia shooting on a fully stocked clinic?" Dante looked at one of his men. Leo. The man at the door moved before Dante finished saying his name. He was huge, broad as a refrigerator, and about as expressive. His shaved head shone under the fluorescent light. There was blood on his sleeve, but he did not seem to notice it. "What do you need?" Leo asked. Camila looked him up and down. A vascular clamp, 2 units of O negative, a functional generator, a new van, and possibly a priest with low expectations. Leo blinked. "She means the clamp first," Maribel said quickly. Camila lifted her chin toward the storage room. "Second shelf, blue bin, back left. If you touch anything that says sterile with those hands, I will remove your fingers and label them educational material." Leo looked at Dante again. Dante said nothing. Leo went. Camila cut Nico's shirt open. The bullet had entered low on the left side, ugly and deep. Too much blood, too much swelling, bad angle. She had worked worse wounds in better rooms and better wounds in worse rooms, but this one sat right in the awful middle, where skill mattered and luck mattered, and the universe sometimes got mean for entertainment. She breathed once, slow, quiet. Then the clinic became an operating room because she decided it would. "Maribel, start another line. Miguel, get the portable suction. Dante Costa, if you are going to stand there looking like a funeral statue, hold this light." Dante's eyebrows moved. Barely, but they moved. Maribel made a small choking sound that might have been fear or laughter. Dante walked forward. He moved like a man who had taught rooms to respect him. Not fast, not slow, controlled, every step measured, every breath under command. His dark hair was wet from the rain, pushed back from a face too calm for the chaos around him. There was a cut near his temple. Blood trailed down the side of his neck and disappeared beneath his collar. He ignored it. Camila handed him the exam light. "Point it here, not at my face. Not at his shoes. Here. Do not get creative." Dante held it exactly where she told him. That should not have surprised her. It did. Most powerful men had terrible hands when they were not holding weapons, pens, or women's futures. They fumbled when usefulness required obedience. They became offended when instructions came from someone they did not already fear. Dante did not fumble. He did not argue. He stood beside the table in silence and kept the light steady while Camila opened Nico's body and searched for the bleeding that was trying to steal him. The storm battered the clinic walls. Somewhere outside, sirens passed and kept going. Of course they kept going. Police cars had a special gift for arriving after poor neighborhoods had already swallowed the dangerous part. "Bullets still in," Camila said. Dante's eyes sharpened. "Don't look proud. It is not a souvenir." She reached deeper. "Maribel, suction. Miguel, if that monitor dies again, hit the side, not the top. It likes side violence." Miguel, who had been a janitor 6 months ago, and was now somehow the best emergency assistant she had after midnight, slapped the monitor. It flickered back to life. "See?" Camila said. "Medicine." Dante watched her. She felt it even when she did not look at him. Men had watched Camila all her life, but not usually like that. Some watched her body first, with quick little judgments they thought were subtle. Too big, too loud, too much. Some watched her mouth, waiting for it to become polite. Some watched her hands, surprised when thick fingers moved with precision, when the fat surgeon had the cleanest stitch line in the room, when the woman they had underestimated could hold a life between 2 forceps and refuse to drop it. Dante Costa watched differently, not gently, not warmly, carefully, as if he had expected a desperate neighborhood doctor and found a storm with a medical degree. The clamp landed in Camila's palm. "Good boy, Leo," she said. Leo froze. Maribel looked down. Dante's mouth did something strange. Not a smile. Almost the memory of one. Camila clamped the bleed and did not think about it. For the next 23 minutes, the clinic forgot to be poor. The peeling paint, the outdated cabinets, the cracked tile, the bucket under the leak, the flickering sign in the front window that only lit up the letters CLIN and left IC to fend for itself. All of it faded under the rhythm of work. Blood, pressure, suture, suction, breath, pulse. Again, again, again. Nico tried to leave once. Not physically. His body was too weak for that. But she saw it happen in his face. That quiet slipping away. That distant softness that came over dying people when the room began to lose them. Camila leaned close. "No," she said. His eyelids trembled. "You do not get to make me do all this paperwork for a corpse. Stay." Dante looked at her then. Really looked. Maybe because of the word, stay. Maybe because he was used to giving orders that men obeyed out of fear. And Camila gave one to death itself, like death was an underpaid intern with bad timing. Nico's pulse jumped beneath her fingers. Weak, but there. Camila stitched faster. When it was done, the room did not celebrate. Emergency rooms rarely celebrated out loud. They simply became quieter. The kind of quiet that arrived after a fight nobody had been sure they could win. Camila tied the last suture and leaned back. Sweat dampened her hairline. Her back ached. Her gloves were ruined. Her favorite scrub top looked like it had been used to clean up a crime scene, which technically was not inaccurate. "Nico is alive," she said. "For now. He needs monitoring, antibiotics, fluids, and a better life plan." His eyes did not leave the boy. "He will have them." "Great. Start with not getting him shot." Leo looked offended on Nico's behalf. He was ambushed. Camila peeled off her gloves. "Was he ambushed near my van?" Leo said nothing. "Then I dislike the ambush." Dante finally turned to her. "What do you need?" That was the wrong question to ask a tired woman in a failing clinic. Camila pointed toward the back door. "A new supply van, a new clinic door, replacement sutures, gauze, antibiotics, blood packs, oxygen tank, 2 crash cart drawers, 1 trauma tray, and the good scissors someone stepped on while entering with all the grace of a collapsing piano." One of Dante's men looked down at his shoe. Camila narrowed her eyes. "I knew it." Dante reached inside his coat. Half the room tensed. Camila did not. She was too tired to be afraid on schedule. He removed a money clip. Of course he did. The thing looked stupidly elegant. Black metal. Thick bills. No normal person carried money like that unless they wanted the world to know they had never once checked a bank app with anxiety in their throat. He placed several hundreds on the metal counter. Camila stared at them. Then she picked them up, counted them, and held out her hand. Dante's gaze flicked to her palm. "More?" "That was for the surgery." His eyes cooled slightly. "And the rest? The van you crushed, the door your refrigerator friend broke, the supplies your people bled on, the staff overtime, the biohazard cleanup, the emotional damages caused by mafia nonsense, and a personal irritation fee because you entered my clinic during my last coffee break." The room went so still again that even the rain seemed to lean closer. Dante studied her for a long moment. Camila studied him back. He was handsome, annoyingly, not in a soft way. Nothing about him was soft. His face had hard angles, dark lashes, a mouth shaped for warnings, and eyes so deep brown they almost looked black under the clinic lights. He carried violence quietly, the way other men carried cologne. There was no need for him to raise his voice. The threat lived beneath it. People probably felt lucky when he ignored them. Camila did not feel lucky. She felt hungry, underpaid, and deeply protective of her floor. Then Dante Costa did the last thing she expected. He laughed. Not loudly, not warmly. Just one low breath, almost unwilling, as if the sound had escaped a locked room inside him. Leo looked disturbed. Maribel looked fascinated. Camila held her hand steady. Dante added more money. She counted it again. "Still short," she said. Leo muttered something in Italian. Camila pointed at him. "I do not know what that means, but I heard the tone." Dante added the rest without looking away from her. Camila folded the bills and tucked them into the locked cash box under the counter. Pleasure doing business with your disaster. This clinic is vulnerable, Dante said. Camila slammed the cash box shut. This clinic is open. Those are different things. Rafael Voss's men may have followed us. That name changed the room, though Camila did not know why at first. Leo's expression hardened. Miguel crossed himself. Maribel looked toward the windows. Even Nico, unconscious and pale, seemed to rest in the shadow of it. Camila wiped her hands on a towel. And Rafael Voss is... Dante's voice was calm. A problem. Your problem? Yes. Then why is his problem bleeding on my table? Dante stepped closer, but only one step. Smart man. Because tonight he tried to kill one of mine, and nearly killed my van. His gaze held hers. If Voss learns Nico survived here, he may come back. There it was. Not a threat from Dante. A warning. It should have scared her more. Maybe it did, but Camila had learned a long time ago that fear was just information wearing ugly shoes. It told you what mattered. It told you where the danger stood. It did not get to make the decision by itself. She looked around her clinic, at Maribel, who had 3 children and always took the late shift because the day shift at Mercy paid better but treated her worse. At Miguel, who sent half his paycheck to his mother in Pilsen and pretended not to sleep in the back office when rent got tight. At the cracked walls and tired chairs and the little plastic basket near the front desk where patients left what they could. $5, 12 quarters. A note that said, "I will pay Friday. Promise." A jar of homemade salsa from Mrs. Alvarez after Camila drained her grandson's abscess and refused money. This place was not impressive. It was not clean enough, rich enough, quiet enough, safe enough, or blessed by the kind of donors who liked their generosity printed on plaques. But it was hers, and people came here when every other door had closed. Dante Costa did not know that yet, but he would. "You are not moving your war into my clinic," she said. "I am trying to keep it away from your clinic. Your armored car is smoking in my alley. Yes. So far, your technique needs work." Another tiny pause. Another almost smile. Camila hated that she noticed. Dante looked toward Nico. "He cannot go to a hospital. Voss has people watching the emergency rooms. I did not ask why you came here." "No," Dante said. "You asked why my problem was on your table. Same neighborhood. Not the same answer." Camila did not like that he was right. She walked to the sink and scrubbed her hands, though the blood was already mostly gone. She needed the movement, needed the hot water biting her skin, needed one normal thing in a night that had cracked open and let the city's underworld drip onto her exam table. Behind her, Dante spoke again. "I can protect this place." Camila turned off the water. There were many sentences she hated. "You should smile more. Are you sure you need that much? Calm down. You're overreacting." "But I can protect you," sat near the top, wearing an expensive suit and smelling like ownership. She turned around slowly. "No," she said. Dante's face changed by almost nothing. "No. No, you do not get to walk into my clinic, break half my alley, bleed on my tile, and then announce protection like I won a prize at the Danger Carnival." His men stared at her, as if she had chosen death with impressive confidence. Dante only listened. That annoyed her too. It was harder to fight a man who did not interrupt. "I am not one of your people," Camila continued. "I do not work for you. I do not owe you loyalty because you paid a bill you caused. I will treat a dying patient because I am a doctor, not because a crime lord made spooky eye contact near my supply closet." Leo's eyebrows rose. Dante's voice remained level. "If Voss targets you, refusing my help will not make you safer. Maybe not, but accepting it without terms will make me stupid." The storm boomed overhead. Something in Dante's eyes shifted. Interest, maybe. Respect, possibly. Trouble, definitely. "What terms?" he asked. Camila blinked. She had expected argument. Threat. That quiet male patience powerful men used when waiting for a woman to exhaust herself. Instead, Dante Costa asked for terms, as if she had offered him a contract across a boardroom table. Camilla dried her hands. First, no guns in patient areas unless someone is actively trying to murder us. Leo looked at Dante. Dante nodded once. Second, your people follow clinic rules. They wash their hands. They wait their turn. They do not scare patients, flirt with nurses, threaten the receptionist, bleed on furniture without apologizing, or call me sweetheart unless they want anesthesia without the fun part. Miguel coughed. Maribel suddenly became very busy adjusting Nico's forvag. Third, Camilla said, stepping closer, I decide who I treat and how. You do not order me to save one man and abandon another because of whatever dramatic chessboard you people are playing. Dante's jaw tightened. There. A nerve. Good. Camilla liked knowing where they were. Fourth, I do not leave this clinic because you snap your fingers. I do not get hidden, stored, escorted, collected, or relocated without my consent. I am fat, not portable furniture. Dante's gaze flicked over her, not in the way men usually looked when that word entered the room. No disgust, no surprise, no lazy little scan. He simply saw her, all of her, and returned to her eyes. Understood, he said. Camilla did not know what to do with that, so she frowned harder. And fifth, if Raphael Voss or anyone else breaks my clinic, you pay triple. Dante looked at the cracked ceiling, the ancient cabinets, the bucket catching rainwater. Triple may be cheaper than repairs. Do not insult my building while standing in it. It was an observation. So is an autopsy. Still rude at dinner. Leo made a sound. This time, Camilla was almost certain it was a laugh. Dante turned his head slightly. Leo became silent. Camilla pointed between them. No, do not scare him out of laughing. I enjoyed that. It made him look briefly human. Leo looked personally betrayed. Dante's mouth moved again. This time it almost became real. Then the front window shattered. Glass burst inward with a sound like ice exploding. Maribel screamed. Miguel ducked. Leo moved faster than seemed possible for a man that size, pulling his gun as Dante stepped in front of Camilla. Not beside her. In front. The movement was instant. Clean. Thoughtless. His body became a wall between her and the broken window. Camilla stared at his back. Wide shoulders. Wet coat. Blood drying at his collar. One hand lifted slightly. Not touching her. Not pushing her. Simply blocking the line of danger. Outside, across the street, a black sedan idled under the broken streetlight. No bullets came. Not yet. Instead, something small rolled across the clinic floor and stopped near Camilla's shoe. A phone, old, cheap. Its screen lit up. Dante did not move. Do not touch it. Camilla looked at him. I was not planning to cuddle it. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Everyone stared. Dante bent and picked it up before anyone else could. His face turned colder the moment he looked at the screen. Then he answered and placed it on speaker. A man's voice filled the broken clinic. Smooth, amused, almost friendly. Dante, the voice said, you made a new friend. Leo's grip tightened on his gun. Dante said nothing. The voice continued. I was hoping Nico would reach a hospital. Hospitals are so easy to watch. But this is better. A little clinic, a brave doctor, very touching. Camilla felt the soft fear then. Not sharp, not loud. Soft. The kind that slid under the ribs and waited. Dante looked toward the shattered window, but the sedan was already gone. Raphael, he said. So this was him. Raphael Voss. Not a shadow, not a rumor. A voice on a cheap phone in her bleeding clinic. I wanted to thank Dr. Rossi, Raphael said. Skilled hands are rare. Loyal men are replaceable, of course. But skilled hands can change a war. Camilla's stomach tightened. Dante's eyes met hers. There was warning in them. And something else. Regret. As if he already understood that the moment she had saved Nico, she had stepped onto a road that would not politely let her turn back. Raphael laughed softly. Tell the doctor she should have closed the door. The line went dead. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Rain blew through the broken window and dotted the floor with cold water. The clinic smelled like blood, glass dust, and the storm. Nico slept under sedation, alive because Camila had refused to let him die. Dante stood between her and the night, still holding the silent phone. Camila looked past him at the mess, the broken glass, the blood, the ruined supplies, the black alley beyond the back door where her van was still crushed beneath someone else's war. Then she looked at Dante Costa. He seemed ready for fear, maybe anger, maybe the kind of silence normal people gave men like him when the world reminded them what standing near him could cost. Camila took the phone from his hand. Dante let her. She dropped it into the metal kidney dish beside the sink. Then she picked up her clipboard, wrote 3 words on the top sheet, tore it off, and handed it to him. Dante looked down. His eyebrow lifted. Another bill? Camila folded her arms. Window. Triple. And for the first time that night, while thunder rolled over Chicago and Raphael Voss's threat still hung in the wet air, Dante Costa smiled like he had just found the one person in the city impossible enough to survive him. Dante Costa smiled at Camila Rossi like she had just handed him a weapon he did not know he needed, and Camila hated how much that smile changed his face. It did not make him harmless. Nothing about him could ever be harmless, but for one quick second, the cold, feared man standing in her broken clinic looked almost alive in a different way, as if amusement had caught him off guard and left a small crack in the armor. Then, the wind pushed rain through the shattered front window. Maribel cursed softly from behind the desk. Nico's monitor gave one tired beep, and Camila remembered that she was still standing in a disaster with a mafia boss, a half-dead patient, and a bill she fully intended to collect. "Do not smile at me like this is charming," she said, taking the paper back from his hand and tapping the word triple with one finger. "This is financial grief with witnesses." Dante's eyes stayed on her. "I will pay for the window." "You will pay for the window, the wall, the deep cleaning, the emotional suffering of my receptionist, and the therapy I now need, because my evening has included a shooting, a car crash, and a man named Raphael calling my clinic like a haunted boyfriend." Leo, who had been checking the street through the broken glass, glanced over his shoulder. "Haunted boyfriend? Did I stutter?" Camila snapped. Leo looked at Dante, as if asking whether this was allowed. Dante only said, "Get the street secured." Leo gave one nod and moved outside with 2 men, his gun low at his side, his body cutting through the rain like the storm had offended him personally. Camila watched them go and felt her anger trying to cover the fear again. Anger was useful. Fear was noisy. Fear made people small if they let it take the wheel. She had built this clinic out of anger, out of every hospital administrator who called uninsured patients a burden, every surgeon who looked at poor neighborhoods like they were sad news reports instead of places full of people with names, every rich donor who wanted a photograph with suffering but not a payment plan that actually saved lives. She had not built it to become a stop on some mafia war map. Still, when she turned toward Nico, her voice softened. "You better appreciate this, kid. I am giving you 5-star care in a 1-star building." Nico did not wake, but his breathing stayed steady. That small rhythm kept her standing. Dante stepped closer to the table, his expression losing the smile. "Can he be moved?" "Eventually." "How long?" "Long enough for you to stop asking that like the answer can be bullied into changing." She checked the IV line and adjusted the blanket over Nico's chest. "He lost too much blood. The bullet tore more than it should have. If you move him tonight, you turn my work into a sad little memory." Dante absorbed that in silence. He looked at Nico for a long moment, and Camila noticed something she wished she had not. His anger was not clean. It had weight beneath it. Worry, maybe. Responsibility. The kind of grief powerful men hid under sharp suits and colder orders because nobody near them knew what to do if they looked human. By sunrise, Dante's men had turned the clinic into something between a hospital ward and a quiet fortress. A plywood panel covered the broken window. 2 guards stood outside, trying very hard not to look like guards, and failing in the exact way large men with earpieces always failed. Leo returned with coffee, breakfast sandwiches, a temporary generator, a replacement oxygen tank, and 3 sealed boxes of medical supplies that Camila was absolutely certain had been acquired faster than legal shipping allowed. She stared at the boxes stacked near the nurse's station. Did these fall off a truck? Leo's face did not move. No, that pause was suspicious. The truck was parked. Maribel laughed before she could stop herself, then turned it into a cough. Camila pointed at Leo. "You are learning. I dislike that." Leo placed a paper cup beside her. Coffee. Black, 2 sugars. Camila went still. "Who told you that?" Leo nodded toward Dante, who stood near the back door on a phone, speaking quietly enough that no one else could hear. Camila looked at the coffee like it had personally invaded her privacy. "I drank 1 cup in front of him. He notices things," Leo said. "That sounds exhausting for everyone, mostly for his enemies." Camila picked up the cup, took a sip, and immediately became more irritated because it was right. Perfect, actually. Hot, strong, sweet enough to keep her from becoming legally dangerous. "Tell your boss I do not accept emotional manipulation in beverage form." Leo nodded as if this were a serious instruction. "I will tell him after you finish it." Dante ended the call and walked toward her. He had changed coats at some point, but the cut near his temple remained. He had refused when Maribel offered to clean it, refused again when Miguel pointed at the blood with a mop handle, and ignored Camila the first time she snapped that infection did not respect crime families. Now, in the thin grey light of morning, he looked too pale beneath his calm. Camila noticed, because noticing was her curse. "Sit," she said. Dante looked at her. "I'm fine." That is a sentence men say 5 minutes before they fall dramatically into furniture. I have work to do. So do I. And right now my work is preventing you from passing out and denting my floor. Sit. Leo's head turned very slowly, as if he wanted to see whether any man in history had survived giving Dante Costa that tone. Dante held Camila's gaze. Then, to the visible shock of every criminal in the room, he sat on the nearest exam stool. It squeaked under the weight of the moment. Camila pulled on clean gloves and stepped between his knees without asking permission, because she was tired and he was bleeding, and there were only so many forms of tension a woman could process before coffee. Dante did not move. She cleaned the cut with practiced hands. He watched her face while she worked, which was annoying because it made her aware of her own mouth, the slope of her cheeks, the stubborn curl escaping her bun. "Stop staring," she said. "I am watching the doctor who charged me for emotional damages, and I am watching a grown man with a head wound pretend he is made of steel. I've had worse. Congratulations. Trauma is not a loyalty program." His mouth almost moved again. She pressed the antiseptic harder than necessary. "Do not smile. I am still mad about my van." The van became the first real argument of the morning. Dante wanted to replace it by noon. Camila wanted him to repair hers because it had the specific shelving system she liked, and the left back door only stuck if opened by idiots. Dante said crushed engines were not emotional heirlooms. Camila said men with armored cars did not get opinions about practical vehicles. Dante said her old van had been unsafe. Camila said so was he, but she was still allowing him indoors under supervision. By the time the sun fully rose, Maribel had stopped pretending not to enjoy herself. Miguel had made popcorn in the break room microwave, and Leo had learned where Camila kept the extra gloves. Dante finally said, "You need a better vehicle." Camila folded her arms. "I need many things. A better city, a second surgeon, a roof that does not cry indoors, a supply chain that does not depend on favors from nurses who steal expired gauze for me. A patient population that does not have to choose between antibiotics and rent. But yes, sure, let us focus emotionally on the van. Dante looked around the clinic then, not with disgust, but with calculation. She could almost see his mind opening drawers and making lists. She hated it immediately. No. His eyes came back to hers. I didn't say anything. Your face did. My face. Your rich man problem-solving face. I have seen it on hospital board members right before they rename something after themselves. Dante stood slowly. What if I fund what you need? Then I ask why. Because I need a doctor I can trust. Try again. His expression grew quieter. Because this place should not have to survive on stolen minutes and broken equipment. That landed harder than she wanted it to. Not because it was romantic. It was not. It was too close to true. Camila looked away first, furious with herself for doing it. Money always comes with hands attached. Then cut them off in the terms, Dante said. You seem comfortable with knives. She should not have liked that answer. She absolutely should not have. But by that afternoon, while Nico slept through fever and the storm rolled away into a wet, shining Chicago morning, Camila found herself at the back desk with a legal pad, writing terms in blue ink, while Dante sat across from her like a man negotiating a treaty with a small country that had excellent posture and terrible plumbing. She wrote that her clinic stayed hers. He could pay for security, supplies, repairs, and emergency transport, but he could not decide who received care. His men would follow her rules inside the building. No intimidation of staff, no weapons visible in patient spaces unless there was active danger. No using her clinic to question, threaten, punish, or hide anyone against their will. No one entered an exam room without permission. No one touched a nurse. No one touched a patient. No one touched the coffee maker, except Miguel, because Miguel had opinions, and Camila respected them. Dante read every line without complaint. Only once did he pause. You wrote that I cannot move you without consent. Correct. Even if there is an immediate threat. You can inform me, advise me, annoy me, and present evidence. You cannot pick me up like a dramatic suitcase. Leo, who had been standing near the door, looked as if he briefly imagined this, and then wisely destroyed the thought. Dante's gaze stayed on the paper. And if you refuse when danger is coming, then you may strongly regret knowing me. He looked up. I already suspect that will happen. Excellent. We are bonding. The first week of their arrangement should have been impossible. Instead, it became strangely organized. Dante's wounded men began arriving through the alley after midnight, not in loud waves, but one by one, quiet and scared beneath their tattoos, gold chains, and hard faces. Some had knife wounds, some had bullet grazes, some had broken fingers they claimed came from doors, despite Camila having met doors and finding the story insulting. She treated them all the same. She made them sign false names only if they insisted, but she still wrote their allergies down correctly. She made them wash their hands before entering patient areas. She made one man take off his muddy boots and sit in socks for 40 minutes after he tracked alley water across her floor. She told another that if he called Maribel baby one more time, she would staple his mouth shut for educational reasons. Word spread quickly through Dante's crew that Dr. Rossi feared God, infection, and poor charting, in that order, and possibly God was in third place on difficult days. Men who had once made entire restaurants go silent began lining up in her waiting room with paper cups of coffee, holding gauze to their ribs and whispering because the sign said, "Quiet hours after 10." Leo became the strangest part. At first, he stood near Camila, like a wall with a pulse, saying nothing unless Dante asked him a direct question. Then one night, during a bad case involving a torn shoulder and a man who kept insisting he did not need stitches while actively dripping on the floor, Camila shoved a tray into Leo's hands and said, "Hold this and stop breathing like a thundercloud." Leo held it. The next time, he passed her gauze before she asked. 3 nights later, He knew the difference between forceps and clamps. By the end of the second week, he was silently restocking the trauma drawer with the solemn focus of a monk arranging sacred candles. Camila caught him alphabetizing antibiotics and stared until he looked over. "What?" he asked. "Nothing. I just did not expect the executioner energy to come with pharmacy management. Dante said you like things reachable. Dante talks about me?" Leo froze, which was answer enough. Camila smiled slowly. "Interesting. I heard nothing," Leo said. "You heard the question. I am choosing peace." Dante came almost every night, though he rarely admitted it was for her. He came to check on Nico. He came to speak with Leo. He came because Voss's men had moved near Ashland. He came because a delivery was arriving. He came because he was already in the area, which Camila found impressive considering his area seemed to include every street her clinic touched. Sometimes he stood in the doorway while she worked, quiet and watchful. Sometimes he took calls in the alley, his voice low, his shadow long beneath the security light. Sometimes he brought food. The first time, it was from a private restaurant Camila had only seen in magazines at dental offices. Dante placed the containers on her desk after a brutal night when 3 injured men arrived within 20 minutes and she had worked until her hands cramped. Camila opened one box and stared at the tiny artistic portions inside. "Is this dinner or a threat?" Dante glanced at the food. "It is from Belladonna. Of course it is. Even the rice looks judged. You don't like it. I am sure it is delicious for someone with a chandelier-based personality." She opened another container and found spicy pasta, roasted peppers, crisp chicken, warm bread, and a small dish of chili oil on the side. Her complaint died halfway up her throat. Dante noticed. Of course he noticed. "The first restaurant was mine," he said. "The second was what you wanted." Camila looked up. "And how would you know what I wanted? You put hot sauce on soup. That could mean anything. You also called Miguel's mild salsa a tomato apology." Miguel across the room lifted his hands. It was mild. Camila looked back at Dante, suddenly unsure what to do with the fact that he listened to throwaway comments and returned with chili oil. The problem was that Dante was easier to dislike when he acted like the monster everyone whispered about. He did not always do that near her. He was still dangerous, still commanding, still the kind of man who could receive a phone call and make 3 cars move across the city with one sentence. But Camila started seeing the pauses between those sentences. She saw the way his eyes changed when Nico woke in confusion and asked if Dante was mad. Dante sat beside him and said no, very quietly, like the word cost something. She saw him send money to the widow of a man who had died in Raphael's first ambush, then close the file before anyone could thank him. She saw him stand outside the clinic at dawn, with rain dripping from his coat, because an old woman inside was afraid of armed men, and he decided the easiest way not to frighten her was to become wet in the alley. Camila wanted to be unimpressed. She truly did. But the most annoying thing about people was that they became harder to judge once they kept doing human things in front of you. Nico recovered slowly and worshipped her immediately. The first time he managed to sit up without cursing, he looked at Camila with round, grateful eyes and whispered, "Thanks, Doc Boss." Camila stopped checking his chart. "Absolutely not." Nico smiled weakly. "Doc Boss, I saved your life. Do not repay me with nicknames. You boss everyone, because everyone is incompetent near wounds. And you're the doctor. Excellent. So we agree on Dr. Rossi." Nico looked at Dante, who stood near the door. "Doc Boss is better." Dante's face remained unreadable, but Camila saw the tiniest betrayal in his eyes. He liked it. "I hope your next soup is cold," she told him. "That seems unfair," Dante said. "You encouraged a patient uprising." "I said nothing." Your silence had dimples. Leo turned away so fast, Camila almost heard his neck crack. The danger did not stay outside the warmth for long. It never did. Raphael Voss was not the kind of enemy who attacked once and waited politely for consequences. His men began circling Dante's territory in clever ways, not just shooting, not just burning cars or breaking windows. They spread rumors, they bribed minor crews, they sent photos of wounded men left outside closed hospitals. They whispered that Dante could protect wealth and weapons, but not bodies. That was when Camilla understood the shape of the war. It came to her while she was changing Nico's dressing, and he mentioned, half asleep from medication, that Raphael's men had yelled something before the shots. "What did they say?" she asked. Nico blinked at her. "Doc boss, I was bleeding. Try." His face tightened with memory. "They said to tell Dante dead men don't follow kings." Camilla's hands stilled. Later, she pulled Dante into the supply room, because it was the only place where everyone did not immediately pretend not to listen. The shelves were newly stocked now, because Dante's money had moved quietly through her broken clinic and made things appear like practical magic. "Raphael is not just trying to kill your people," she said. "He is trying to make them believe getting hurt means getting abandoned." Dante's expression hardened. "I know. No. You know the violence part. I am talking about the medical part. He wants fear to spread through wounds. Every man who thinks he cannot get care becomes a loose brick in your wall." Dante said nothing. Camilla stepped closer, tapping his chest with one finger, before thinking better of it. He looked down at the touch, then back at her. The air changed, softly, dangerously. She removed her hand. "Your loyalty problem is bleeding, Costa. I can help with that." His voice lowered. "You already are. Not enough. Not if they are scared to come here. Not if I have one clinic, one generator, one Leo who now thinks he is a nurse because he can pronounce cefazolin." From outside the room, Leo said, "I can pronounce it." Camilla closed her eyes. "Why are walls useless around criminals?" Dante's gaze did not leave her face. "What are you suggesting?" "A system, safe routes, rotating entry points, supply kits, field pressure training. Your men need to know that if they go down, they have a way back." She took a breath. "Not because you are terrifying, because somebody will come for them." For a moment, Dante looked at her in a way that made the small supply room feel even smaller. "You speak about my men like they are yours." Camilla swallowed. "They are my patients. There is a difference. Not when they are bleeding." That was the night Dante asked her to dinner properly. Not with containers on her desk, not with coffee disguised as strategy, not with a driver waiting like an assumption. He stood in the alley after midnight, while the city steamed from fresh rain, his coat open at the throat, his expression too controlled to be casual. "Eat with me," he said. Camilla, who was locking the back door, looked at him. That sounded like a command wearing date shoes. It was an invitation. Try again. Dante's jaw shifted. He looked almost offended by the rules of softness. Then he said, slower, "Would you have dinner with me, Camilla?" Her name in his mouth was a problem. Not because he said it sweetly. He did not. Dante Costa did not sound sweet. But he said it carefully, like he knew it belonged to her and not to him. She should have said no. She had charts to finish, sleep to chase, a clinic to protect, and absolutely no business sitting across from a mafia boss who remembered her coffee and looked at her like she was a mystery he respected too much to solve quickly. Instead, she heard herself say, "Only if the restaurant has normal lighting." Define normal. "If I need a candle and a spiritual guide to find my fork, I am leaving." He nodded. Understood. The restaurant was closed when they arrived, which Camilla immediately called suspicious. Dante said he owned it, which did not help. But the lights were warm instead of dramatic, the table was near the kitchen instead of in the center like a performance, and the chef brought out food that smelled like garlic, lemon, butter, peppers, and every good decision Camilla had forgotten to make for herself lately. She ate like a woman who had lived on vending machine almonds for 2 days, and Dante watched with an expression that was almost peaceful. "What?" she asked around a bite of bread. "Nothing." Men only say nothing when something is definitely happening in their heads. You enjoy food. That is not an observation. That is proof I am alive. Most people pick at their plates when they eat with me. Most people are scared you will murder them between courses. And you? Camila dipped bread into sauce and considered lying. I am scared, she said finally. Dante became very still. She looked at him directly. I am not stupid. I know what you are. I know what standing near you can cost. But I am more scared of men like Raphael deciding poor people, wounded people, desperate people are pieces on a board. I have spent my whole life watching important men make decisions that land on bodies they never see. At least with you, I can yell at the source. Dante's eyes darkened. You should not have to. And yet here we are. He leaned back slightly, but his gaze stayed fixed on her. I do not want you hurt because of me. Camila's laugh was small and tired. That is the problem with men like you. You think because danger came in your car, it belongs only to you. My clinic was already in danger before you arrived. Maybe not from Raphael, but from bills, from shortages, from people treating survival like a luxury item. Your war is louder, Dante. It is not the first one I have fought. He was quiet after that, not because he had no answer. Because, for once, he seemed to understand that an answer would not fix anything. They ate in that strange silence, and it was not empty. It had rain against the windows, old jazz from the kitchen speaker, the clink of Camila's fork, the low hum of Dante's phone, vibrating again and again, while he ignored it for almost 12 whole minutes. She pretended not to notice. He pretended not to notice her noticing. Then, just as dessert arrived, his phone buzzed with a different tone. He picked it up, read the message, and the warmth left his face. Camila set down her spoon. What happened? Dante stood. One of mine is missing. Her stomach tightened. Wounded? Probably. Where? He looked at her, and she saw the argument before he spoke. The protective instinct, the calculation, the desire to put her somewhere safe and go handle the blood without her. Camila stood too. Do not make the face. What face? The face where you decide my life is easier if I am not consulted. Dante's voice turned harder. This is not a clinic call. Is there a wounded person? Yes. Then it is exactly a clinic call. Camila. Her name sounded different this time, like warning, like plea. She stepped closer. You asked for a doctor you could trust. Trust goes both ways, Costa. You do not get to use my hands and ignore my brain. 10 minutes later, she was in the back of Dante's car, with her medical bag on her lap, Leo beside her, looking deeply unhappy, and Dante across from her, silent as the city blurred past in streaks of wet light. They found the missing man in an abandoned laundry warehouse near the river, barely conscious, tied to a chair, bleeding from a shallow wound that had been made to look worse than it was. Too obvious, too theatrical. Camila felt it before Dante said anything. This is bait, she whispered. Dante's eyes moved through the shadows. Leo lifted his gun. The wounded man groaned. Camila's body pulled toward him anyway, because bait still bled. She reached him, cut the restraints with trauma shears, and pressed gauze to the wound, while Dante's men swept the room. The man's eyelids fluttered. Doc, he breathed. She did not know him. He knew her. That scared her more than the blood. Who told you to come here? She asked softly. His lips trembled. They said he'd come if they used one of us. Dante turned sharply. Who? The man's eyes rolled toward Camila. Not him, he whispered. Her. The lights went out. The warehouse dropped into black so complete, Camila heard her own breath before she heard the guns. Dante's hand closed around her wrist, firm but not painful, and pulled her behind him as the first shot cracked through the dark. This time, she did not yell at him for moving her. This time, she felt the bullet pass close enough to disturb the air where her face had been, and for one terrifying second, All her clever words disappeared. Dante shoved her behind a concrete pillar and stood in front of her again, a shadow against shadows, his gun in his hand, his body between hers and the room. Leo's voice cut through the darkness. Men moved. Glass broke. Someone shouted. Camila dropped to her knees beside the wounded man and kept pressure on his injury because fear did not excuse her from work. Dante looked back once, just long enough for their eyes to meet. There was no smile now. No banter. No careful, almost softness. Only the truth both of them had been avoiding, standing in the dark with bullets between them. Raphael Voss had not been hunting Dante's men anymore. He had started hunting Dante's doctor. Raphael Voss had not been hunting Dante's men anymore. He had started hunting Dante's doctor. Camila understood it in the dark of the warehouse before anyone said the words out loud, before Leo cursed from somewhere near the broken windows, before Dante fired twice into the black and pulled her father behind the concrete pillar with one arm locked across her shoulders. It was not a gentle hold, but it was not careless either. It was the kind of hold a man used when the world had narrowed to one thought, and that thought was keep her breathing. Camila hated that she noticed. She hated that even with gunfire cracking through the room and dust raining down from the ceiling, some foolish part of her brain still had time to register the heat of Dante's body in front of hers, the sharp scent of rain and smoke on his coat, the way his breath stayed steady while every other sound in the warehouse became chaos. "Stay down," Dante said. Camila looked at the wounded man bleeding beside her knees. "I am literally already on the floor. Camila, do not say my name in that tragic voice. It makes me want to argue harder." A bullet hit the pillar above them. Concrete dust sprayed into her hair. That shut her up for about 2 full seconds, which was impressive for everyone involved. Dante shifted, fired again, and the room answered with a shout from the far side. Leo moved through the dark like a myth with a gun, quiet until he was suddenly not. Camila could hear him giving orders to Dante's men, short and sharp, while the wounded bait on the floor shook under her hands. She pressed harder against his side and leaned close to his ear. "You have a name?" she whispered. "Marco," he breathed. "Okay, Marco. Tonight is terrible, but you are not dying in an abandoned laundry warehouse because that is ugly, and I have standards." He gave a weak, broken laugh that turned into a cough. Dante glanced back. "Can he move?" Camila checked the bleeding by touch because the emergency light had gone out and her small flashlight had rolled somewhere beneath old machines. The wound was shallow enough to be intentional, deep enough to scare him, messy enough to pull her in. Raphael had known exactly how much blood would make a doctor run toward a trap. "He can move if someone carries him," she said. "I'll take him," Leo called from the dark. "Do not drag him like luggage," Camila snapped. A pause. Then Leo said, "Understood." Even in the dark, even with bullets flying, the man sounded offended. Dante's hand found Camila's wrist. "When I say move, you move with me. If you pull my shoulder out, I am billing you." Triple? Emotionally, yes. There it was again, the smallest impossible breath from him, not quite a laugh, not even close to peace, but enough to remind her that they were still themselves under the fear. Then Dante said, "Now." They moved. Dante rose first, covering her with his body, as Leo lifted Marco with surprising care. Camila kept one hand clamped over Marco's wound, while half running, half stumbling through the dark behind Dante. The warehouse smelled like mold, oil, and old river water. Men shouted from the upper level. Someone fired from the metal stairs. Dante turned, shot the chain on a hanging light fixture, and the heavy frame crashed down in a shower of sparks. The sudden brightness revealed 3 men ducking behind crates near the loading bay, and the black mouth of an exit beyond them. "Leo," Dante said, "I see it. I hate when men have secret action conversations with 2 words, Camila muttered, breathless. Dante pushed open the side door, and cold river air slapped them hard. Rain had started again, thinner now, meaner, falling sideways under the wind. 2 cars waited near the alley, engines running. Leo loaded Marco into the back of one. Camila climbed in after him because she did not trust anyone in this group to remember that blood pressure mattered. Dante got in across from her, still holding his gun low, eyes on the doorway until the car lurched forward. Only when they were moving did Camila see the blood on his side. Not a lot, not yet, but enough. She stared. Dante followed her gaze. "It's nothing." Camila's face went blank. "You are one of those." "One of what?" "Men who say it's nothing while leaking." It grazed me. Fantastic. The bullet was polite. Leo looked at Dante. "Boss. I said it's fine, and I am saying take off your coat before I cut it off," Camila snapped. Dante looked at her for one long second. Then, with visible irritation and something that looked dangerously close to obedience, he opened his coat. The bullet had torn through his shirt along his ribs. It was not deep, but it was bleeding freely. Camila reached for her bag and worked in the unsteady light of the car, one hand still checking Marco, the other pressing gauze against Dante's side. "You got shot because you stepped in front of me," she said. "Yes, that was not praise." "I did not hear praise. You are impossible. You have said worse. I am saving the better material for when you stop bleeding on my hands." He looked down at her fingers against his side, then back at her face. The car passed beneath streetlights, and each one cut across his eyes for less than a second. Dark, tired, focused, and something else now. Something stripped bare by danger. He was no longer hiding it well. Maybe he had stopped trying. "I will not apologize for keeping you alive," he said. Camila's hands slowed. She should have given him a sharp answer. She had several ready. She almost used one, but the words turned heavy in her mouth. The truth was simple and inconvenient. A bullet had passed where her face had been. Dante had moved before thought, before strategy, before pride. He had protected her the way he protected his men, with his body first and explanations later. So she pressed the gauze harder. Dante inhaled through his teeth. "There," she said softly. "That is for worrying me." His eyes held hers. The car went quiet. Then Marco groaned from the seat beside her, and the spell broke before it could become something neither of them knew how to name. They returned to the clinic just before dawn. The plywood over the broken front window rattled in the wind, and the sign outside still flickered weakly, stubbornly, as if even electricity had decided to stay on out of spite. Miguel opened the back door with a broom in one hand and a kitchen knife in the other. Camila stared at him. What exactly was the plan? "I had options," Miguel said. "You had a broom and a knife. 2 options." Maribel rushed in behind him and took one look at Dante's blood-stained shirt. "Oh my God, he is being dramatic," Camila said. Dante looked at her. "I said it was nothing." "Yes, and that was your first act of theater." They got Marco onto a table. Dante tried to stay standing while Camila worked, but she pointed to the second stool without even looking at him. "Sit, or I will ask Leo to emotionally support your knees." Leo nodded once. "I can." Dante sat. By the time the sun rose, Marco was stable. Dante's side was stitched. Nico had woken long enough to ask if this meant he was still the favorite patient, and Camila's clinic had officially become the strangest medical facility in Chicago. Criminals whispered in the waiting room. Nurses moved around armed men like they were badly placed furniture. Leo handed Camila instruments before she asked for them. Dante stayed near the back wall with his shirt half-buttoned and his patience fully ruined. Camila knew the look on his face. She had seen it on doctors after losing a patient, on mothers after the ambulance pulled away, on men who thought control could be rebuilt by making one large decision very quickly. Sure enough, he waited until she stepped into the supply room, then followed her in and closed the door. "No," she said. He had not spoken yet. Dante's eyebrows lowered. "You don't know what I'm going to say. You want me moved." His silence confirmed it. Camila picked up a box of gloves and shoved it onto the shelf. "See? I can diagnose arrogance from across a room. Raphael knows where you are. Raphael has known where I am since the window. He planned tonight for you. Not Nico, not Marco. You. Yes, that part was creepy. I am adding it to the invoice. This is not a joke. No, but if I stop joking, I may start screaming, and nobody has time for that. Dante stepped closer, then stopped himself, as if he had remembered the terms before crossing an invisible line. That stopped her too, because he remembered, even now, even afraid, even angry enough to make the walls feel smaller. He remembered. My penthouse has security, he said. Medical space can be arranged. Equipment can be brought in. You would be safer there. Safer, she repeated. Yes. And my clinic? My people can guard it. My patients. We can transport. No. Camila. No. This time her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. You do not get to turn my clinic into an empty shell because Raphael scared you. Dante's jaw tightened. He did more than scare me. I know. You almost died. I know. If I had been 1 second slower, but you weren't. Her voice softened despite herself. Dante, you weren't. He looked away then, and for the first time since she had met him, Camila saw something close to fear move openly across his face. Not fear of death. She doubted death impressed him much. This was worse. This was the fear of imagining another body on the floor and knowing he would carry the blame like a second spine. Camila set the gloves down. You do not get to make me disappear because you care about me, she said. His eyes returned to hers. There. The word had landed. Care. It stood between them in the supply room, surrounded by bandages, saline, and enough tension to make even the shelves seem nosy. Dante's voice was low. And if I do? Camila's heartbeat changed. Then learn to do it without building a cage. He was silent. She took a breath and reached for the legal pad sitting on the small counter. You want me safer? Fine. Then we build something useful. Not a hiding place. Not a pretty room where I sit quietly while men decide what happens outside. A medical wing. Real equipment. Backup power. Surgical lights that do not flicker when Miguel insults them. Secure entry. Staff housing if needed. Supply storage. Recovery beds. And it treats your people and mine. Yours? My clinic does not stop being my clinic because it gets walls with a view. You want this in my penthouse. I want it somewhere Raphael cannot break the window with a phone call and a bad attitude. Dante stared at her. Camila lifted the pen. Also, I want the terms in writing. That almost smile returned, but it was sadder now, softer around the edges. You trust paper, he said. I trust people who sign paper when it limits them. Dante looked at the page. Write it. So she did. She wrote while the clinic woke around them, while Maribel checked vitals, while Leo made phone calls in a voice that made delivery drivers suddenly very motivated, while Nico flirted badly with a nurse and immediately fell asleep halfway through his own sentence, while Dante stood beside Camila in the supply room and watched her build a future he had never known how to imagine. A place inside his fortress that was not for planning violence, counting money, or hiding fear. A place for keeping people alive. By noon, Dante's lawyers had the draft. By 3, engineers had measured one of the upper penthouse floors. By evening, Camila stood in Dante Costa's private elevator with her arms folded, still in scrubs, carrying a medical bag and an expression that dared anyone to call this romantic. His penthouse was exactly as annoying as she expected. Too large, too quiet, too much glass. Chicago stretched below in silver and gold, the lake dark beneath a bruised sky, the buildings rising like secrets with lights in their ribs. The living room alone could have swallowed her entire clinic, and still had space left over for rich people to feel lonely. Camila looked around and made a sound. Dante, beside her, said, "What? Your apartment has villain acoustics." Leo coughed into his fist. Dante ignored him. This way. He led her down a hall past closed doors. armed security, and windows that did not rattle in storms because apparently some buildings had self-respect. At the end of the hall was an empty floor already being cleared. Workers moved furniture. Men carried boxes. Electricians marked walls. Someone had rolled in temporary medical beds, still wrapped in plastic. Camila stopped in the center of the room. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, grief rose so suddenly that she almost lost her breath, because this was what money could do in hours, not months of begging, not grant applications, not humiliating meetings with donors who loved sad stories but hated budgets. Hours, a phone call, a signature. A man with power deciding a thing should happen, and then it happened. Dante saw her face. Of course he did. "What is it?" he asked. Camila shook her head. "Nothing. Do not insult me." She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "You stole my line." He waited. Camila looked at the wide, clean space, the strong walls, the private elevator, the secure doors, the city beneath them like a patient under glass. "I have kept people alive with expired supplies and favors. I have begged for medicine from hospitals that throw away more in a week than I could buy in a year. And now your men make one phone call, and suddenly there is space, equipment, power, safety." She swallowed. "It makes me angry." "At me?" "At everything." Dante stepped beside her, not too close. "Use it." She looked at him. He nodded toward the room. "Your anger has been building a clinic with broken tools. Let it build this one with better ones." Camila hated how good that sounded. "You are becoming dangerously useful," she said. "I have been told to try. By a brilliant woman, no doubt. By a loud one." She turned her head slowly. Dante looked straight ahead, but his mouth betrayed him. Camila smiled before she could stop herself. The medical wing took shape faster than any sane project should have. Dante's world moved illegally fast and beautifully well when properly terrified. Camila refused half of what he tried to add because she did not need Italian marble in a recovery room, and no patient in history had healed faster because a sink looked expensive. She argued with contractors, reorganized supply cabinets, tested backup generators, inspected every lock, and told Leo that if he wanted to be useful, he could learn how to set up sterile fields properly, instead of looming near doorways like a cursed wardrobe. Leo learned. Badly at first, then annoyingly well. Nico arrived 2 days later, still weak but determined to help, and immediately taped a handmade sign to the temporary nurses' station that said, "Doc Boss General Command." Camila removed it. He made another. She removed that one too. By the fourth sign, Dante had it framed. Camila stared at the frame on the wall. "Take it down." "No. I am your doctor. I know where your stitches are." Dante looked at her calmly. "It improves morale. It improves Nico's ego." Nico, from a recovery bed, raised one hand. "Also morale." Maribel, who had agreed to split her hours between the old clinic and the new wing after Dante offered salaries that made her sit down for several minutes, laughed from the medication cabinet. Miguel called the place too clean and immediately claimed control over the coffee maker. By the end of the week, the penthouse medical wing smelled less like expensive paint and more like antiseptic, coffee, warm food, and people trying very hard not to die. But Raphael did not wait quietly while Camila built something he could not easily break. He adapted. The first message came through an old patient's phone. A photo of Camila leaving the clinic 2 years earlier, before Dante, before Nico, before armored cars and midnight wars. The second came as a delivery box, with no return address, filled with broken glass and a white coat cut down the middle. The third came through a wounded man who stumbled into the old clinic with a note pinned inside his jacket. Dante read it once and turned so cold the room seemed to lose heat. Camila took it from his hand. The note said, "Doctors choose who lives. So do kings." Camila looked at it for a long moment. Then she said, He is very committed to being dramatic. Dante did not smile. This ends now. This time, Camilla did not argue, because he was right. Raphael had made the same mistake men like him always made. He thought a doctor was valuable only because of her hands. He saw Camilla as a tool, a prize, a weak place in Dante's armor. He did not understand that a clinic hears things. Patients talk when they are scared. Nurses hear names. Drivers remember corners. Wounded men describe where they were hit, what they smelled, what song was playing, what kind of floor they fell on. Pain leaves clues, and Camilla had been reading pain all her life. So while Dante prepared soldiers, Camilla prepared a map, not of territory, of wounds. She spread patient files, blood reports, injury patterns, and delivery routes across Dante's conference table, ignoring the shocked faces of men who were used to maps with guns and money on them. She pointed at 3 neighborhoods, then 4 warehouses, then a medical supply company Raphael had quietly purchased through a shell business. "Here," she said, "he has a doctor." Dante's eyes sharpened. "How do you know?" "These stitches." She tapped photos from 3 different wounded men. Same hand, same mistake. Whoever is treating Raphael's people uses too much tension near the edges. It leaves this little fold. See? Bad technique. Arrogant. Consistent. Also, they keep using the same cheap antiseptic that smells like fake orange. 2 patients mentioned it. One of yours said the warehouse where he was held smelled like oranges and rust. Leo looked at the map. Orange antiseptic? Mock it and bleed elsewhere. I am not mocking. You were spiritually close. Dante leaned over the table. Where? Camilla circled a block near an old private surgical center that had closed during the pandemic and never reopened. Here, it has ambulance access, old generators, underground parking, and a loading dock. Also, Raphael's men keep getting treated too quickly after fights on this side of the city. Unless he has magic, he has a hidden medical base. Dante looked at her for a long time. "What?" she asked. "You just found Raphael's safest location through stitches and bad cleaning fluid. Yes?" His eyes warmed in a way that made the room feel briefly private, despite the 8 dangerous men watching them. Terrifying woman. Camilla's chin lifted. Correct. The plan came together around her discovery. Dante would not attack blindly. That was what Raphael expected. Rage. Bullets. A loud response. Instead, Dante used Camilla's medical map to cut off Raphael's hidden safety. Supply trucks were redirected. Drivers were paid to disappear for a night. Power to the old surgical center was interrupted at the exact moment Raphael's men expected a wounded convoy. Dante's people moved through the city quietly, blocking routes, turning allies, offering something Raphael had forgotten mattered: care. Men who had been told Dante would abandon them when wounded were shown a clean medical wing, beds, medicine, nurses, food, and Camilla Rossi walking between them with a clipboard and a voice sharp enough to make fear sit up straight. By dawn, 3 of Raphael's smaller crews had switched sides without firing a shot. "Dead men don't follow kings," Nico said quietly from his bed when he heard the news. Camilla adjusted his blanket. "Living men follow whoever shows up when they are bleeding." The final blow did not come in a grand ballroom or a burning street. It came in the old surgical center Raphael thought no one had found. Dante went there before sunrise with Leo and a small team. Camilla was supposed to stay in the penthouse medical wing. She did not. Technically, she stayed until the first call came in that Dante had been hit. Then she moved with such speed and fury that Miguel stepped out of her way before she even spoke. Leo's voice came through the phone, rough and strained. "He is conscious." "Where?" "Camilla." "Where, Leo?" A pause. Then he told her. The drive to the surgical center felt unreal. Chicago was gray and half awake, the streets wet, the sky pale at the edges. Maribel rode beside her with 2 trauma bags. Miguel came too because, in his words, he had a broom, a knife, and growth potential. Camilla did not have time to argue. They reached the surgical center as Dante's men secured the lower entrance. The building looked dead from outside, all dark windows and rusted signs, but inside it smelled exactly as Camilla expected. Fake orange, rust, blood. She found Dante in what had once been a recovery room. He was sitting against the wall, one hand pressed to his upper chest, shirt soaked dark beneath his fingers. Leo stood beside him, face carved from stone and gilt. Raphael Voss knelt across the room with two of Dante's men holding him, his perfect suit torn, his smooth face bruised but still smiling. Camilla ignored Raphael completely. She dropped to her knees in front of Dante. His eyes met hers. "I told them not to call you," he said. Camilla stared at him. "That is the worst opening sentence you could have chosen. It looks worse than it is. If you say it's nothing, I will let Maribel sedate you for personality repair." Maribel, already opening the trauma bag, said, "I brought options." Dante's mouth twitched, then tightened with pain. Camilla cut his shirt open. The bullet had entered high, near the shoulder, dangerously close but not fatal if the bleeding stayed controlled. Her fear tried to rise again, big and black and useless. She pushed it down and let her hands take over. "Pressure here. Maribel, line. Leo, stop looking like a guilty statue and hold the light." Leo moved instantly. Dante watched her face as she worked. "You came." "Yes, I am starting to think that is my worst habit." Raphael laughed from across the room, touching. Camilla did not turn. If the villain section could remain quiet while adults are working, that would be wonderful. His smile sharpened. "You think he sees you as equal? He will keep you until you become inconvenient. Men like Dante collect useful things." Dante's eyes went cold enough to kill, but Camilla pressed one bloody hand against his chest and kept him still. Then she looked at Raphael. Really looked. He was handsome, in a polished, empty way. The kind of man who expected fear to arrive before he finished speaking. The kind of man who had mistaken cruelty for intelligence because it had worked on people who could not afford to fight back. "You used wounded men as bait," Camilla said. Raphael shrugged lightly. "And you came every time." "Yes." Her voice softened, and that somehow made the room quieter. "That is what you never understood." His smile faded a little. Camilla turned back to Dante and resumed working. "People like you think caring is weakness because you only understand leverage. But every man you hurt remembered who left him bleeding and who came to stop it. That is why you lost." Raphael's face changed. Just enough. Dante saw it. Leo saw it. Every man in the room felt it. The war had not ended because Dante was feared. It ended because Raphael had made his people afraid of being abandoned, and Camilla had given them proof that they did not have to be. Dante's men took Raphael away before sunrise. Camilla did not ask where. She was a doctor, not a priest, judge, or fool. She only said that nobody was allowed to bleed on the stairs because she had done enough mopping in this lifetime. Dante was moved to the penthouse medical wing under protest. His protest lasted exactly 8 seconds before Camilla reminded him she had anesthesia and unresolved rage. He recovered badly, not physically. Physically, he healed faster than she expected and complained less than he deserved credit for. Emotionally, he was a nightmare. He tried to hold meetings from bed. He tried to stand too soon. He told Leo to move a security briefing into the recovery room, and Camilla responded by unplugging the room's main screen and handing him broth. "I run an organization," Dante said. "You currently run a fever if you annoy me." "I do not have a fever. You have the vibe of one." Nico laughed so hard from the next bed that Maribel threatened his stitches. The old clinic stayed open, but it changed. Dante repaired the window, the roof, the door, the plumbing, the sign, and yes, the van. Camilla kept the van even after he bought a second one, because the old one had survived a mafia car and deserved respect. The new penthouse wing became the secret place for emergencies too dangerous for public hospitals, but Camila made sure it also served the people who had been walking through her clinic door long before Dante arrived. Cash patients, uninsured patients, tired mothers, delivery drivers, men with no papers, women with no one listening, kids with asthma, old people who brought soup as payment and scolded Dante's guards for blocking the hallway. Dante's men adjusted, mostly because Camila forced them to. Leo became the official head of security and unofficial keeper of supply drawers. He still looked terrifying, but now old women asked him to reach things from high shelves, and he did it with the solemn dignity of a man moving priceless art. Nico recovered, gained weight, and remained devoted to Camila, with the embarrassing loyalty of a golden retriever who had seen combat. Miguel ruled the coffee maker from the penthouse like a tiny, underpaid king. Maribel ran the nurses with such calm authority that even Dante lowered his voice when she was doing med counts. And Dante changed too, not into a gentleman. Camila would have distrusted that. The world did not turn wolves into house pets because a woman kissed them. Dante remained dangerous. Men still lowered their voices when his name entered a room. Enemies still stepped carefully around his shadow. But now, sometimes, before he made a brutal decision, his eyes moved toward the medical wing, toward the beds, toward the people who would pay the cost in flesh. Sometimes he changed the plan. Sometimes he asked Camila what she saw. Sometimes he listened before the damage happened. That mattered. It mattered more than pretty words. The night Camila officially moved part of her clinic into the penthouse medical wing, it rained again. Not like the first storm, this rain was softer, silver against the windows, turning Chicago into a blur of light below. Boxes lined the hallway. Her old desk stood beside the new nurse's station, scratched, dented, and completely out of place among all the expensive surfaces. Dante had asked once if she wanted a new one. She had looked at him until he said, "The old desk stays." Smart man. Camila stood alone near the wide window, holding a mug of coffee, watching the city she had fought for all her life. Behind her, the wing hummed with quiet life. A patient slept behind curtain 3. Maribel laughed softly at something Miguel said. Nico was arguing with Leo about whether Doc Boss needed a theme song. Someone had taped the framed sign higher on the wall, where Camila could not reach it without a step stool, which meant there would be consequences. Dante came to stand beside her. Not too close. Close enough. "You're quiet," he said. "I am enjoying the terrifying possibility that my roof will not leak tonight. I can arrange leaking if it helps you feel at home." She turned her head. "Romance is alive." His mouth curved. For a while they watched the rain, then Dante said, "This place is yours." Camila looked around the medical wing, at the lights, the beds, the staff, the supplies, the guards outside the doors, the people inside who were alive because it existed. "It is ours." Something in him stilled. Camila took a breath. She had faced blood, bullets, hospital boards, broken vans, Rafael Voss, and Dante Costa with a head wound, but this was harder in a ridiculous way. This quiet, this choice, this standing beside a man powerful enough to offer cages and disciplined enough, finally, to hand her keys instead. "I am not here because you protected me," she said. "I know. I am not here because you paid for equipment. I know. I am not here because your apartment has villain acoustics and excellent water pressure. That one surprises me." She smiled despite herself. "I am here because this works, because my people are safer. Because your people are less stupid when they have medical supervision. Because we built something better out of a very bad night." She looked at him fully. "And because I want to be." Dante's expression changed slowly, carefully, like a man approaching something more dangerous than any enemy he had ever faced. "You want to be?" he asked. Camila set her mug down. Do not make me repeat emotional material. I am new to this. He stepped closer, stopping just in front of her, still asking without words, still waiting. That was why she reached for him, not because he took, because he did not. Her fingers brushed the front of his shirt, just above the scar she had stitched herself. You know, she said, for a feared mafia boss, you require a lot of maintenance. His hand came up slowly, settling at her waist only after she did not move away. Your invoices suggest you enjoy it. My invoices suggest you are expensive. And you? I am priceless, obviously. This time, his smile was real. Camila rose onto her toes and kissed him, before either of them could ruin it with another argument. Dante went still for half a second, as if the softness shocked him more than pain ever had. Then his hand tightened gently at her waist, his other hand lifting to her cheek with a care so precise it almost hurt. He kissed her like a man who knew power and chose restraint, like a man who had spent his life owning rooms and had finally found a woman he only wanted to be invited by. Behind them someone whispered, "Finally." Camila broke the kiss and turned. Nico pointed weakly at Leo. He said it. Leo stared straight ahead. I said nothing. Maribel smiled into a chart. Miguel suddenly became fascinated by the coffee filters. Dante looked at his men. The room snapped into innocent silence. Camila laughed, not a small laugh, not a tired one. A full, warm, startled laugh that filled the medical wing and made Dante look at her like he would remember the sound in every dark room for the rest of his life. Later, when the patients were settled and the rain had softened against the windows, Camila walked through the wing one last time before midnight. She checked monitors, adjusted blankets, corrected Nico's terrible handwriting on the supply log, and found Leo restocking gauze with unsettling perfection. Dante waited near the entrance, one shoulder against the wall, watching without rushing her. The old clinic sign had been brought upstairs and mounted near the inner door. It still only lit up halfway. Clin, stubborn as ever, Dante had offered to fix it. Camila had said no. Some broken things became history when they survived long enough. She stopped beneath the sign and looked back at him. You know this does not mean I work for you. Dante's eyes softened. I know. And it does not mean your men get priority over Mrs. Alvarez and her grandson. I know. And if you bleed on my floor again, I am charging triple. I would expect nothing less. Camila studied him, this dangerous man who had crashed into her alley with blood, trouble, and a dying boy, and somehow stayed long enough to become part of the place, instead of owning it. Dante Costa still won loyalty through fear when he had to. Camila Rossi won it by showing up with steady hands when the world had already decided someone was disposable. Together, they had become something Rafael Voss had never understood. Not a king and his doctor, not a monster and his weakness, a blade and a needle, one ending the war, one keeping their side alive. At midnight, Dante opened the door to the medical wing and waited for her to walk through first. Camila noticed. Of course she noticed. She walked past him with her chin high, her scrubs wrinkled, her body tired, her heart annoyingly full, and her clinic alive behind her. Then she glanced back. Costa? Yes? Try being useful and bring my coffee. Dante looked at her for one quiet, shining second. Then the most feared man in Chicago picked up her mug without argument and followed her home.